Halloween 2 is often considered one of the best horror sequels ever made. But behind the facade of success, the creators were dealing with gossip and betrayal. Some of these problems were small, but others were much, much bigger. I took the time to organize these findings into 4 parts, with the last betrayal being towards you, the audience member. So stay tuned for that, and remember, be not afraid. I think it's important to give you a brief recap of the production for the first Halloween before I go into the production of the second one. There's a handful of key players that carry over to the making of the sequel, and I want to reintroduce them to you before diving in. In 1976, producer Irwin Yablans gets an idea for a movie about babysitters being murdered. He brings this idea to the hottest new director in town, John Carpenter, who, along with Deborah Hill, collaborate together in the penning of the script. They decided to set it on Halloween night and naturally titled it as such. To the surprise of everyone, the movie ends up being a financial success and becomes the highest grossing independent film ever. And this is where this Halloween 2 video picks up. Hollywood has a very simple rule. When something makes a lot of money, double it and give it to the next one. In this case, it was $2.5 million in the budget.
The idea to make another Halloween occurred to me after the first receipts rolled in.
Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad saw how well Halloween was doing, and they wanted to capitalize on it. Irwin Yablans met with John Carpenter various times to talk about a possible sequel. The problem was that the first one was supposed to be a one-off.
I never thought that there was any story left after the first movie. Boy, am I stupid, huh? Somehow we made Halloween 2 because people had money. They wanted to make money.
What Hollywood is really about is making money. So Dino De Laurentiis and Universal picked up the rights to do it.
And even with all the meetings they had, Carpenter's creativity kept pulling him to do something different. This creative endeavor would eventually become The Fog. But these opposing ambitions leads us directly to the first betrayal. The quote-unquote verbal agreement they had was Irwin was going to help Carpenter do The Fog first, and then Carpenter would do Halloween for them second. Except he didn't. A rival studio stepped in and offered Carpenter a better deal if he did The Fog with him, and he took it. Betrayed, Yablans took them to court and sued him for breach of contract.
I had to be in Cannes for the film festival, so I left for Cannes. During the plane ride, I happened to be sitting next to Bob Ramey. Bob was now head of a company called Avco Embassy. He wanted to know more about John Carpenter, and I said, we're going to do 2 more movies with him. We're going to do The Fog, and then we're going to do Halloween 2. Not long after, Bob Ramey at Embassy announced that he was going to do The Fog with John Carpenter. I was pretty upset. I was livid. And I did the only thing I could at that point. I sued them both. To settle the case, we agreed to let Carpenter do The Fog with Embassy, and we got the commitment for Halloween 2.
The case was settled with Avco producing The Fog and Carpenter returning to write the script for Halloween 2.
We came time to do the Halloween sequels, and I won't go into, it's a long story, but I had to write Halloween 2. Well, you know, that was the sequel. I didn't want to direct it, and I got forced into writing it, and look, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, I had a 6-pack of beer, it was the only idea I could think of.
Probably the most well-documented fact about this time is that John Carpenter didn't know where to take the story, and so he sat down with a case of beers and started writing. No one liked the script.
But I kept saying, there's no story. There's nothing here. Well, so anyway, I wrote that thing. It wasn't very good.
So you can imagine when the script came back to me and I read it, and I just hated it.
I personally was not too pleased with the script when I got it.
Carpenter had no desire to direct, and the studio set out to look for someone to take the helm. And this is where we get our second and third point in the gossip mini list. You see, even though Rick Rosenthal was not the first in line to direct, his shooting style closely resembled Carpenter's style in the first Halloween. And due to this fact, he was recommended to John and Deborah, and after a number of meetings, he was given the blessing to direct. However, once the film was completed, Carpenter was very vocal about his dislike for the director's cut.
On the other hand, I think Halloween 2 is an abomination and a horrible movie. I was really disappointed in it. And but I don't think he had a feel for the material. I think that's the problem. He didn't have a feeling for what was going on. And that is vital. Oh, yeah.
Although the lawsuit had forced Carpenter to create Halloween 2, he ended up getting more involved in the production past a basic script write. He came in and reshot some scenes and edited the movie in order to provide context where he saw fit, as well as making a TV version where the gore was toned down. Carpenter did all he could to fix the directing issues behind the scenes, yet with all these changes, there was still some criticism lingering on in front of the camera. Nick Castle did not reprise the role of Michael Myers as he wanted to make a name for himself behind the camera. As a result, he was replaced by stunt coordinator Dick Warlock, who had passively thrown his hat into the ring and was given the okay to don the mask.
I'm not sure, but Deborah went to do Halloween 2, and she called me up and said, would you like the job as stunt coordinator? We'd love to have you. So I said, yeah. She said, well, you got to come in and meet the director. Well, that was okay. I was used to that anyway. So I went in and sat down. We had our little meeting. I got up to leave, and I had the mask in my hand. I turned back to him, and I said, is there any reason I can't play this guy? He kind of looked me up and down. He said, if Deborah doesn't care, I don't care. So that's how I got the job.
His portrayal of the Shape was disliked by Deborah Hill. Apparently she hated his walking style, criticizing the clunkiness.
And I understand that I got knocked by Deborah on one of the anniversary editions for never getting the walk down. Well, she was on the set every day and never said a word to me about, I think you're walking too slow, or you should do this or that. So I thought, well, they like what I'm doing.
Oh well, there ain't much he could do at that point. Finally, to wrap up this pre-production portion, Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence both reprised their roles to a degree. Halloween 2 was released in theaters on October 30th, 1981. The movie opened with $7 million and it finished with a total of $25 million in the box office. Not quite as much as the first one, but it still made some money. The movie is rated R, falls on the horror genre, and runs for 92 minutes. And now for the most surprising part. You know how I said that this movie is considered one of the best sequels? Well, apparently that's only according to the YouTube comments. Something survivorship bias. On the official review websites, this movie is very middle of the road. IMDb has it as 6.5 out of 10, Metacritic at a 40, and the Letterboxd at 3.2 out of 5. Yep, it's alright. These scores really shocked me, and the Siskel and Ebert review sums up what I'm about to say, which is the fourth and final betrayal.
I was totally disappointed by this sequel for all the standard reasons that most of us are dissatisfied with sequels. This worked once, not this time. I wasn't scared in Halloween 2, I was just grossed out. Some films don't need sequels. I know there's a tremendous commercial impulse to do it, but some are so good and so fresh, don't make a sequel to it. It's a disappointment, and I think that people, if they see the first one, are going to realize just how bad this picture is.
We were also disappointed by Halloween 2, the sequel to a much, much better 1978 film. Part 2 lacked the style and the scares. We both vote no.
Since the release of Halloween, Hollywood saw an exponential rise of slasher movies in which teens were being hunted down. This budget-friendly trend challenged studios to one-up each other exponentially, increasing the violence portrayed on screen. By the time Halloween 2 came out, it was diluted in the sea of bloody slashers.
Between when Halloween came out and when we started shooting, Friday the 13th had come out, and I mean, the world had gotten far gorier, and I was still pushing harder for suspense.
By 1981, the theater of the mind wasn't as potent. If you were a fan of the first one, it might be due to the use of shadows, lack of blood, and lack of gore. You know, the entirety of the theater of the mind package that Erwin Yablans specifically asked for.
It felt like everything that Halloween was not. Sort of the antithesis, where Halloween got it done with suggestion and shadows and true old school suspense technique.
By the time the second one came around, they betrayed that concept in lieu of pools of blood, and I'm not exaggerating.
The way they did that scene was funny because they first created a pool, an actual pool, and then they just poured all this red liquid, and it was like basically a red swimming pool. It was like...
Now hindsight being 2020, I think it's an acceptable entry into the franchise, but I'd still give the edge to the first one. You might differ, and if you do, leave a comment below. But you can't deny that Halloween 2 definitely increased the violence shown on screen, as well as the levels of blood. And that about covers the making of Halloween 2. Before I let you go, consider subscribing and browse around the channel for similar content.
Part 2 is doing okay at the box office. What do you think the chances are of Part 3?
I pray that I don't have to suffer through that.
Better not to think about it, okay?